Oh, I'm
You're
like,
alive.
hello, hello. How's everybody? I'm sorry I'm like a minute late. We were having issues trying to go live, so we had to refresh the page a couple of times, but we are here now. So a couple of logistics first. Let me know if you can hear me. I actually have two microphones, so just give me a thumbs up just to make sure that everyone can hear me. All right. Can everybody hear me? Yay! Hi, Janice. Hi, Marelis. Hello, Ramesh. Hello. Okay, great stuff. So everyone can hear me. We have exactly 1 hour for the call, and this is our second live call for this year. So I really, really appreciate everyone's presence here, and thank you for all the support with the channel. And per popular demand, we are making it happen. So the plan is to do these live sessions at least once a month at the beginning of each month. And then depending on how things work out with time and my schedule, I will try to do that more often. But as of now, we're going to try to do those once a month. So hello, Christopher. So what we're going to do now, give me 1 second. My team is actually testing something. So I want to make sure. Okay, it's good now? Okay. All right. So, hey, Samba. So what we're going to do, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did at the last live session. I am going to read a couple of the questions that were submitted via email. And then once everything is answered, I'm going to open up the floor for everyone to ask their questions. So we're still in sort of like testing mode. Last time we actually did the live on a Sunday. And then for this month, we decided to do it on a Saturday just to see which day actually works out best for everybody. I'm trying to do my best to accommodate every type of working schedule. I know some people work on the weekend, but the majority of us are actually working during the weekdays. So please let me know if there's any type of preference in terms of days, whether it's on a Saturday or a Sunday. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up my phone and start with all of the questions that were sent to me online. So first things first, the first round of questions I got was from Ramesh, and I see that you're on the call. So hello. So the very first question I have here is, every day I get one email from my agent with a link with all the available multi-homes. Right now I'm going through all the available homes, but not sure how to find the right one for me. But not, I know in one of your videos, you mentioned that you look for two things. One is cash flow and the second one is ROI. So when I go through all the listings, is there any way I can add key values in an Excel sheet similar to the mortgage payoff calculator to compare cash or ROI so that I can picture the best, or so that I can select the best from the list? So my real question is how to identify a property among the list of 20 to 30 properties, which gives the highest cash flow and ROI. Since this is a big topic, I'm not sure if you're able to cover it in a live session. So I'll appreciate it if you can answer in live or create a separate video. So Ramesh, you are right in terms of the topic being quite broad. So there are a lot of components that you need to factor in to decide which property works out the best for you or not. But the simplest rule that I always recommend everybody is, one, first, find out what expenses you need to cover as part of the rental, because sometimes, depending on the state, some utilities are included and some are not. So for example, in New York, we cover water and we cover heat and what's the other? Yeah, water and heat. But if you go down to rentals, let's say, for example, in Florida, all the utilities are actually separate. Like that's not something that the landlords usually include, at least in my experience. I can't speak for the other ones. So when you are actually looking at the list of rentals, the first thing you should check with your agent is what utilities are typically covered in this state, in this area. And then you're going to use that to factor in your calculation. So, and I also know, Ramesh, that you included another question. I think you sent me a separate email, not related to this, but I figure everyone could benefit from this question. And you asked about Section 8 properties and their pros and cons. So for those who are actually not familiar with the concept of Section 8, it is a government assistance plan that is given to families that are of low income, and also to the elderly, to the elderly. So unfortunately, Section 8 over the years have gotten a really negative connotation of tenants who are not the best quality of tenants, meaning, oh, well, they're gonna, if you rent it out to Section 8 families, they're going to destroy your place. You're gonna have to keep up with the maintenance and stuff like that. And that's in fact not true. I think it's think of it this way. It's always easier to complain than to share good news. I don't know what is it about human nature, but people tend to do that very often. If something great happens, then we're caught up in the moment enjoying the happiness. But in the minute we feel some level of pain, it's a lot easier to share that pain rather than keep it within ourselves. So it's the same thing with Section 8. I have Section 8 properties myself in Alabama, and they're not all bad. I think the key is doing the best you can to get the good tenants. So by that, I mean proper background check, a criminal background. And then sometimes it can take a couple of months to wait for the right one to come. And unfortunately, some investors, myself included sometimes, we feel the pressure of having a mortgage to pay and having some other responsibilities, financial responsibilities that we need to take care of. So we tend to rush into the decision making and we overlook certain things, like maybe some red flags that come up along the way when you were doing the background check, but because you're so desperate and renting out the property and you have this family here saying, well, I'm going to give you 4 or 5 months worth of deposit. Well, every time somebody offers you that much money for a deposit, then you have to ask yourself, what's the reason? Why is this person in such a rush to move in? Maybe it's a legitimate reason, but you should always look into that. So in my experience, when you do the proper due diligence to get the right family that matches all of your selection criteria in terms of qualifications, then they're typically good families. So that's one. And then two, Section 8 rentals are meant for people that are stickler for rules. So if you are more of like a free spirit person, you don't like to abide by certain rules and you would like to do everything your way, then Section 8 is definitely not the right investment for you, because you have to abide by certain government guidelines, because you are asking the government for their money. They are giving you their money to your rental so you can do business. So the good things about Section 8 rentals is that you're always going to get your money secure every month, because it is the government. Once you make it into the system, it's guaranteed money that's coming your way. So the way it works is that it depends on the financial income of the family. So let's say, for example, some families will qualify for maybe 30% or 40% or 50% government assistance. So it all depends on the family. So what you do is that you receive one chunk from the government, from Section 8 in this case, and the other chunk of rent that you'll be receiving will be from the tenant himself or herself. And that's how Section 8 works. And then you have to meet their criteria. They have certain guidelines, and where they say, well, the windows have to have this, and then the walls have to have this, and you have to meet certain codes in terms of fire alarms and safety regulations and stuff like that. So unless you can meet those and you can meet them by the rule, then do not even bother, because Section 8, it's not going to bend over backwards for you. There is a lot of demand. These are people who are overworked, and they still have a lot in their queues of in terms of families who are in need of assistance for house. One good news about Section 8 is that they are in high demand. There's not enough supply in the market for Section 8 families. So if that's something you would like to get yourself into, do the proper due diligence, work with a property manager who is highly experienced in the subject, so that it could bring your property up to speed and up to code, so that way you don't have to deal with any issues from the government. They will check on you from time to time just to make sure that you're keeping your word in terms of maintenance and upkeep. But other than that, if you don't think that's something you can meet, then forget about it. Just go about your own way and do your regular rentals the way you will prefer to do so. So hopefully that helps out. And I see a couple of people join. Aventuras Familiares. Hello, hi. And I have Anthony here in the call. Great, awesome stuff. So that's it in terms of questions that Ramesh has submitted for me. So hopefully you found that helpful and that it will help you in one shape or form to make that decision that you're looking for. Great stuff. Okay, I'm glad you found that helpful. So the next question I had was from Marelis. She actually submitted that days ago, but for whatever reason, I'm scrolling down the chat and I don't see it again. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go back in memory lane and I'm going to try to remember what you asked. Your question, Marelis, was about Fund and Grow and what you wanted to see if you should wait until you start investing in real estate, or if you should start the process of applying for Fund and Grow before you even find the right property, before pursuing the fund gathering from Fund and Grow. So I hope I captured that question correctly. I don't remember in the top of my head, but I think that's what you asked. So my suggestion is just think of it this way. Every time you go to the bank or to a lender and you try to apply for a mortgage, the first thing they're going to ask, I mean, besides the W-2 and all the legality stuff, is that they want to know where did your money come from. And typically depending on the lender, they will ask, JM, hello, hi JM. So typically what they will ask is proof of funds to see if you have any money. And then the next thing they're going to ask is how they want to see how long that money has been sitting there. So depending on the lender, is somewhere between 3 to 6 months. And that whole process is called the seasoning of funds. So if you wait until you find your first rental property to then apply for Fund and Grow, to then take money out of your credit cards, a couple of months are going to go by and you might not even qualify for the financing of that mortgage because the bank is going to realize that you're just taking money out of the credit cards and therefore is debt that you will have to repay. The bank doesn't like to have, let's just put it this way. The bank doesn't like to share with anybody. They want to be first in line. And the only people they cannot fight against is Uncle Sam, right? So if you don't pay your taxes, if you don't pay anything that it's owed to the government is going to take first position to repossess your house. That's one. But if you are on time with all your payments to the government, you pay all your taxes, the next person that's always online to take back the property from you will be the lender, will be the bank. So if they know that you have debt to credit cards or someone else, that someone in one shape or form contributed to the purchase of your property, they're not going to like that. And chances are they're either going to move on, they're not going to qualify you, and for whatever reason, right? So the last thing you want is to let something like Fund and Grow sort of like get in the way. The tool is meant to help you expand in your real estate or get started. So I would say the best time to get started with Fund and Grow, if your plan is to leverage their services, is to start today. To start today, get approved for those business credit cards. And the beauty about those business credit cards is that they do not appear on your personal credit. So there's 2 credits that you always need to maintain. The personal one, which you're going to need, and then eventually you're going to need to build your business credit. So whenever you have the 2 credits built, they're not going to mix with one another because they stay separate. There's going to be a point in time and where you're going to need your personal credit to build your business credit. And that's just, the first year or 2, maybe until you get that business credit established. And then after that, they stay separate from one another and they're not reported in one another. So let's say, for example, if you have $50,000 worth in business credit card and you decide to take all $50,000 out of those business credit cards, they're going to remain in your business credit profile. They're not going to impact your personal credit. You can still have your 700 or 800, whatever scores that you have in your personal credit is not going to impact that. And the beauty of it is that Fund and Grow works with 0% credit cards. So you can have that money sitting in your bank account, waiting for the right time, right? Waiting for the right property to come along. And then you can leverage that money to either buy your property as a down payment money, or if it's cheap enough, maybe you can use all of the money that you took out of that Fund and Grow credit card line and buy a property, quote unquote, cash, and then use the rent proceeds to repay it, or you can refinance it. I mean, the opportunities are endless. So long story short, the best time to apply for Fund and Grow is today. Do not wait, because the last thing you want is to have the seasoning, the funds just sort of like get in the way. So hopefully that helps out your question, Marelis. Let me know. If not, then I'll try to do my best to, just elaborate more, but hopefully that should have been helpful for everybody. JM, I started buying property. Hey, congrats. Great stuff. So I think that's all the questions that I have. I did receive a lot more in the Spanish channel, but I figure most of you guys will prefer to ask the questions online here in the chat. So I went through all the questions that were submitted to me beforehand. So now I'm going to open up the floor to see if anybody has additional questions besides the ones that were covered just now in the first couple of minutes. So let me know. I'm going to open up the floor. So Samba, hello Samba. How do you apply for Fund and Grow credit card with 0%? Okay, so I realized that I started talking about Fund and Grow. Thank you for the question, Samba. And maybe some of you don't know exactly what Fund and Grow is. So Fund and Grow is a business service that helps a small business. They help investors apply for business credit. So their service is actually a end-to-end type of service. They not only educate you on how to build business credit, how to take care of your own personal credit, but at the same time, they go out and they start applying for credit card by the budgets. And by credit card, I mean business credit card. So they're not the kind of agency that they give you the information, they charge you money, and they just like move on, good luck. So they actually work side by side with you. It's kind of like they hold you by the hand and they sort of take you through the steps. So the way they work is that they typically have an assessment call. They qualify their clients because not everyone it's credit worthy, quote unquote. And if that's the case, if you're not credit worthy, what they do is that they will simply give you some tips so you can clean up your credit and bring it up to, good standards. And that's when they start working with you. So the way their service works is twofold. So they have a membership for a full year where they're going to assist you, unlimitedly for whatever issues you have. And they also have a membership where they don't charge you anything, but for every credit line that you get approved, they will charge a certain percentage. I forgot what the percentage is, but in my opinion, the best way to go about it is to pay for the membership, because imagine if they charge you like a percentage or two for every credit line. Imagine if you got a credit line of $100,000, 1% or 2% of that is a lot of money, and it's a lot more than you would have paid in the membership. So they apply, they help you with the application, they create a business entity for you, so that way you are keeping everything separate from your personal profile. And then I believe they also walk you through the steps where you can actually call and have some inquiries removed in your credit profile if in the event that you had some that were illegitimate and you were trying to remove that before without any luck. So they will coach you again so you can call the lenders or the institutions and try to work it out. So that way you have a cleaner profile and then hopefully, do wonders with that credit. So that's in essence what Fund and Grow does. And so there is a video that I created before. What I'll do after this live session, I will include the link to that video, and I will also include the link to the Fund and Grow services so you can actually apply for them. And then the rep that I always work with is Kevin. He's great. I worked with him in the past, very professional, very thorough in explaining everything about the service. Like I said, first, they'll have an assessment call just to walk you through everything, because the last thing they want is to have an unhappy customer. So they focus very, very strongly on customer service. And then once you're fully on board, once you feel that you're ready to join them, then that's when the whole process starts. And then, they'll qualify you even more. They'll ask you a couple of questions just to see what's the best way they can actually assist you in the entire process. So I'll leave the link after the live video. And then after that, best of luck. Feel free to apply. So hopefully that helped out your question, Samba. Then the next question I have is from JM Investments. Hello. That is what I did. I used all the business card I got with the help of Fund and Grow. Oh, great stuff, to buy your very first property. Yeah, so we have a success story here. That's awesome news. So feel free to connect. Like I said, my intent, my goal with Nova Rise, with this channel itself, is to serve as a one-stop shop for people to come in and look for information. It is meant to be a safe haven for everyone to exchange ideas, exchange information to help one another. I want to build a strong community of investors, like-minded individuals. So JM, if you're okay, for anyone who is in the channel today, tuning in live, if they have any questions, let me know, or let everybody know if it's okay for them to reach out to you. So that way you guys can start networking and maybe, have opportunities to work together sometime in the future, or just simply exchange ideas. It all depends on what is it that you're looking for. But I mean, here's the JM is the live example of a success story leveraging services like Fund and Grow. I have Sky Ranks. What is your opinion in turnkey real estate? So funny enough, I actually met a couple of people who does turnkey. And one of my the many real estate networking events that I've attended, I'm sort of like a little bit mixed in the whole equation because there's so many components that can go out of hand, right? So for those who don't know, the whole concept of turnkey is literally what the word stands for. All you get is a key, you open the door, you turn the key, and then you walk in and voila, you have a property that it's ready to move in, ready to rent out and stuff like that. So the whole goal is, there's a product and service for everyone in the market. Some real estate investor want to get more hands-on and they love to do flipping, they love to do renovation, so they don't mind buying an ugly house that is about to fall apart and make it look really pretty. And some other investors like me are kind of more like in the middle ground, mainly because they are busy doing other stuff and they just simply don't have the bandwidth to be on site. So what they do is that they like to buy properties that will require cosmetic fixes. And by cosmetic, I mean a simple change of the cabinets or a simple change of the countertop, or maybe replacing the vanity in the bathroom, but something that is fairly easy enough to replace, something that you could do yourself if you want to. And for those who are actually really handy, or you can just simply have your property manager help you replace that at a minimal cost. And so that's one type. And you get the real estate investors who just simply don't want to get their hands dirty, period. And they just simply go in, they rather pay someone who specializes in turning an entire neighborhood around. And that's what the turnkey agencies or turnkey companies do. So I haven't invested in anything that is turnkey related because I just simply don't have the need. And in my interactions with those agencies, for the most part, the way they work is that, yes, so they get investors to give them money so they can start the project. But then somewhere along the lines, they are going to still need capital because you have personnel to pay, you have work permits, you have building materials that you need to continue to buy in order to finish up the project. So that's when they go out and they sell the idea to those investors who don't want to get their hands dirty. And they say, well, this is the house that I have. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 3 bedrooms, 2-bath, and it's going to cost you this much to buy. On average, I would like to think that the prices are a little lower than what you will find in the MLS, but they say, well, we need you, if you're interested in buying this property, this is how much it's going to cost you. And then you either pay a deposit or you pay some money up front. So the only downside about that is that if you have the money to put that deposit and lock that property, you are sort of like locked out of the way with money, right? So yes, you will get a property maybe in 6 months or 9 months, depending on how long they take to build the entire property. And in my experience, you always have to add a couple of months extra to a project of that caliber. Renovation things always comes up, and you find things in the wall that you originally didn't find before, but then as you start tearing things apart, you see them. And so your money is going to be tied for the next couple of months. And if, let's say, for example, sometime down the road, you see a property that you like and you want to buy, you won't be able to do any of it because your money is already tied in this area. But I think it's all a matter of choices. I don't like to poo-poo on like different services out there. There's, like I said, there's always a product and service for everyone out there in the market. So what could work out for you might not necessarily work out for me. So I think it's all, in essence, for you. It's more of like something for you to gather enough information and then decide, do you want to pursue that or not? So I wouldn't do the whole turnkey thing because in reality is I don't know how long they can take to finish up a project. Meanwhile, I already have a team in place in Florida. I already have a team in Alabama that could easily find me that property should I decide to pursue that. And some of it might even come with seller financing. I can work out a deal where I don't even have to go through the bank and I can do the negotiations with the seller itself and then just make things work without having to wait months and months and the work to make things happen. So, but that's my criteria. That's how I work. And I think that's more of something for you to ask yourself if you're actually comfortable putting money in the deposit and just wait around to see how long it might take. And that's basically about it. So hopefully you find the answer helpful. I hope I answer your questions. And so I'm going to move along. I see a lot of questions flowing in. So Skyranked, I already got that. Anthony, do you have a link for Fund and Grow? I will include that later in the chat after the live is over. So Marily said, I already signed with Fund and Grow 2 days, and now thanks to your video. Great stuff. Congratulations. Hopefully you get approved sooner rather than later. I have Janice. I also did Fund and Grow last week. Best of luck. Hopefully things work out for you. And Marily is asking, can you do a video with the steps on how to open a new LLC? I could try to work on that in the future, but just in a nutshell, you can get an LLC set up with your accountant or just by going to a real estate attorney. It's actually very easy. You can even set those up online. I think somebody actually sent me an email not so long ago asking to see if it was a good idea to open up an LLC. I think in essence, all depends on what is it that you're looking for. If you're getting started, you don't have that much capital to, do I don't want to use the word bulletproof, but a complex legal structure, then having an LLC, it's better than having nothing. So yeah, I'll definitely do some additional work around, speak to my accountant to see what are the steps to go about it. I just usually just go to my accountant and say, hey, I need an LLC. Can you open it? So, and it also depends on what state you actually want to open up the LLC. So just so you know, for every LLC that you decide to open, even if you open it in another state, you're going to need an address where you're actually doing business at. So if you, let's say, for example, live in the state of New York, you can easily use your home address, although I don't recommend it for your LLC. So the best way to go about it is to get one of those PO boxes that don't look like a PO box, but I know UPS has them to a certain degree. I forgot what other service has them, but they give you a UPS with an address that actually looks professional. So 123 Main Street, Suite 8 or something like that. And it's only like 20 or 40 bucks a month that you can actually get, that you can actually pay to get one of those services. And what you do is that all the mail that you get for the LLC is going to be forwarded to that. It's meant, one, to protect you against any litigation for anonymity reasons, for security reasons. You do not want to give your home address for your business. So, that's if you're opening the LLC in your own state. But for those who want to do business in a different state, you're going to need to pay for a service that's called a registered agent. So, and that's usually with local attorneys or local CPAs that are in the area or in the state that you're choosing to do business with. And in exchange of a fee, you sort of like rent their address, right? So you rent their address, they're going to let you use their address legally so that you can use that and set up the LLC in that particular state. So it's a fee that you have to take into consideration. So every year when your LLC is due for renovation, you're going to have to pay two fees, the registered agent fee and also the LLC fee. So that's in a nutshell what I have to share. I'll provide more details sometime down the road in another episode, but hopefully that helps out just to give you an idea of the things that you need to consider in the setup of an LLC. And then Skyrangs is asking, do you use a property manager or do you manage properties yourself? I do use a property manager for the properties that are actually, well, let me take a step back. I do use property managers now. When I first started, I didn't have the budget and it was fairly close where I live. So I'm not sure if you actually watch the story, how I actually got started in real estate, but I started managing the real estate for my parents. So they saved up some money along the way and they wanted to use that money for some type of investment rather than leaving it at the bank, just sitting there gaining 0.1 interest or something like that. So they just didn't want to see their money just stay stagnant because they knew that what the bank does is to take their money and lend it to other people. So they've asked me to look around and find a property for them. And that's when the whole real estate journey started. Like I said, I started all by accident. I had no intention of becoming a real estate investor. And then my parents, being Chinese and being really, really frugal, they did not want to pay anybody to manage their real estate. So I had to come to speed. I had to actually learn how to do things my way. And of course, it was a painful experience. I was very naive. I was only 19 years old at the time. And, like people sometimes do take advantage of you when you're that nice. And so slowly I started learning a little bit about the whole background check process, about the whole deposit, about the late fees and stuff like that, and making sure that the window of criteria is what actually met by whatever prospect, by whatever candidate. Over time, I started growing and I started investing out of state. And when you live out of state, it's actually difficult. Let's say, for example, if I have a property in Alabama, to manage everything from New York, because if somebody forgets the key, something happens, the water pipes break, I do not want to have to feel obligated that I need to hop on a plane just to go down to Alabama to see what happened. And so the best thing I did was to hire a property manager. And believe me, it's a very unthankful job. People don't seem to really appreciate the amount of work that goes into managing a property, and the amount of money that they charge. It's very minimal. It's only 10% of your rent. It might sound like it's a lot for you as a investor, as a homeowner, or a property owner, because of course you have to factor in all of the expenses for the mortgages and the utilities. But this person, this property manager, is actually saving you from getting massive headaches, saving you from getting calls at 2:00 in the morning because somebody forgot their keys or because the water pipe broke down. This is somebody who is, available 24/7 with the phone and ready to hop on a car and be there in that property in no time, while you are enjoying, quality time, either with your family, your friends, loved ones, whatever is it that brings you joy and happiness. So I invest in a property manager. It's a no-brainer for me. So, but it all depends up to you. I do understand that when you're getting started, you typically don't know. And you're trying to get the best bang for your buck, and you want to save as much money as you can. And it's also a good learning experience. So if you can get the experience of managing a property yourself just to learn, it's great, because that will shape you in a way so that when you decide to invest in other states and actually interview other property managers, then you will know exactly what questions to ask for, see their dynamic, the interaction. You can actually present them with case studies and see how much they know about managing a property. What would you do if the situation were to present? What would you do if that situation were to present? So that's one way to go about it. And I think a couple of months ago, I also created an episode on how to interview your property manager. So I'll make sure I include the link after the live session is over. And hopefully that will help you with the question. Okay, great stuff. So you're welcome. And any other questions that you guys have? So we are at minute 34. So that means we have 25 minutes left before I end this live session and jump on another call. For those who have families or know someone who are Spanish speakers, I am actually having a live in my Spanish channel at 1:30 Eastern time. So if you have partners that you think might be great joint ventures to join you, just feel free to invite them over to the Spanish channel. I will be over there answering questions as well. So any other additional questions that you guys might have along the way? Olayinka, what do you think of rural investment? Hi, Olayinka. What do you mean rural investment? You mean buying land, or what exactly about it? I'm not sure I follow your question. Can you please elaborate a little bit more? RX Toy, hello. All right, so while we give Olayinka some time to elaborate more on the question, is there any other question that anybody has? I'm trying to remember, there was a one-off question that somebody asked me. Rural area, town with 5,000 or less people. I see, okay. Well, first thing first, you have to see what's in demand in that area, right, Olayinka? So for example, the first thing you need to check, oops, I dropped my water. So the first thing you need to check is, okay, is this an area where I will get more luck renting, or is it an area where I will get the best of my investing by flipping houses and selling it? So that's the first thing you need to ask yourself. If that rural area is mainly composed by homeowners, then your best bet is to get a house who needs a certain level of work at a very, low price, and then make it pretty, fix it up, and then sell it. But if that area is mainly composed of people who prefer to rent, then as long as there's demand in the area and also jobs is something you have to definitely consider. Um, there has to be jobs, right? There have to be jobs available in the area, because otherwise, how would you think people can afford the rent or the lifestyle that you're looking to provide to that neighborhood? So in terms of looking for jobs and searching for jobs around the area, make sure that they're not highly dependent on just one source of job. Like, for example, Detroit with the whole, car manufacturing company, the time when Detroit sort of quote unquote went down was because the car manufacturing industry completely pulled out of that town, and there was no other jobs available in the area. So when you're selecting an area to invest, make sure there's a variety of jobs, so that way you don't have to depend on that one industry. So if one pulls out, make sure there's still 2 or 3 other type of skill set or expertise in the area, just to make sure that that town is still standing after that major company leaves. And sometimes when a company leaves, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe they're leaving because they're making room for other companies to come in and create more jobs in the area. So that's something that you definitely should consider in the equation when you're looking for a town to invest. So investing in a rural area, in your case, is not necessarily a bad thing. Any area is not a bad thing. It doesn't matter if it's a popular town or not, as long as there's demand in the area. And if there is a type of demand, then you have to see what kind. Like, are they looking to buy or are they looking to rent out? So hopefully that helps with your question. KJ, good morning. Samba had a question. It says, wanted to know the best area in the US to invest for real estate rental business. I think inadvertently, I sort of like covered that when I was answering Olayinka's question. The best areas are where there's demand and there is jobs in the area. So it's very difficult for me to actually give you the name of a place, because one, I don't like to poo-poo in other areas. And two, it all depends on your investment criteria. What is it that you're looking to do? What is it that you want to do, that you want to achieve? Your risk tolerance might not be the same as my risk tolerance. Some people are more risky than others. So that's something that is up for you to decide. But in a nutshell, what I like to say is, always make sure you cash flow never be a negative, because it can quickly pile up. If you invest in a property just in hopes for it to appreciate, the next thing you know, there could be an economic downturn, you can lose your job, or maybe a water pipe breaks and you'll have to pay for the renovation. And then on top of that, you're also in the negative cash flow window. You don't want to be in that situation, because things can get ugly very fast. So something for you to definitely consider. All right, so I'm gonna leave this open for people. Okay, hi Abe. I have a few props out of state, and I look for a certain ROI. What ROI do you look for before you invest? So my golden rule is 30%. I don't do anything that's less than 30%. You can do 10 if you're wholesaling, but that's my bottom line. And I haven't done wholesaling in a long time, because it does require a lot of work, and I'd rather do something that is a little bit more passive. That's not to say that wholesale is a bad strategy. It's actually a great strategy if you have the time and you need cash today to make things work. But I just realized that for me, it wasn't working out. I had a full-time job, and at the same time, I was managing other things at the same time. So I decided to go for the buy and hold rental route, and my rule is 30%. So hopefully that helps out. Oh, actually, I just remember a question while you guys think of any other questions that you might have that you want to ask in the chat. Somebody sent me an email a couple of weeks ago asking about LLCs and transferring properties and their ownership from the personal name into the LLC. Just so you know, so if you have a property, let's say that you bought under with a residential loan and it's currently under your name and you're paying it out, you won't able to transfer the ownership of that property into the LLC. You could, if you involved a real estate attorney and have that real estate attorney go over the mortgage paperwork to see what the clauses are. So in my experience, at least in my, sometimes banks are okay with you transferring the deed over from your name to an LLC as long as you continue to make the payment. But I wouldn't recommend you doing it without letting the bank know or without engaging a specialist or a real estate attorney to do that. But you don't always have to feel obligated to transfer your name into an LLC if you have it under your personal name. So that's one. And then the follow-up question that I received from that same email is, do I need an LLC to get a cash out refi? And the answer is no. You can do a cash out refi under your name. If you have a HELOC, and HELOCs are only done in your homes. I know in the last live session, someone actually said that you were able to get a HELOC on a residential address, but I forgot what the terms were. So feel free to refer back to the first live session to go through the chat, and you'll find the contact who actually shared that information. And so in essence, you don't need to have an LLC to do these type of engagements. You don't need an LLC for a HELOC. You don't need an LLC for cash out. You can definitely do that under your name. The time where you're going to do the closing on their LLC is when you're about to buy a property and you're ready to close it. And it's typically done on loans that are commercial. So as long as you're engaging a lender that specializes in residential mortgages, by no means they're ever going to let you close under an LLC. So that's a major distinction that you should be aware of. So the type of loan does impact whether you can or cannot have the closing under an LLC on your name. But typically keep in mind that if you are planning to close in an LLC, then you're viewed as a business. And for the most part, business loans are a bit more expensive than the residential or personal loans. So it feels like some kind of like a catch-22. So if you go one way, here are the pros and cons. And if you go the other way, you'll get your pros and cons. So it's more for you to sort of like decide what actually works best for you or not. And if not, and you feel that you have to put some kind of legal entity in the place, then just reach out to a real estate attorney and see what other options are to actually put your name or put that particular property that you bought under your name under some type of legal entity. Land trusts are one way to go about it, but just make sure you sit down with a specialist and consider what your options are. But the LLC is not the only way. It is the best way, but it's not the only way. So hopefully that helps out. So 30% return, that is good. Yes. And that's why I always say that out of 100 properties that come along your way, only 3 of them might be worthy of you considering. And out of those 3, maybe 1 will make it to the end. So properties, there's a lot of inventory out there. There's a lot for you to choose from, but not all of them are going to meet your investment criteria. And like I said, you have to buy cheap. You have to make your money in the buy. You cannot go into a real estate deal hoping that maybe with appreciation, things will get better, because the reality is you have no control of what might happen tomorrow. The scenario is a little bit different if you're doing house flipping, because it's it's short term, and you're renovating a property within a short period of time, and then you're just selling it out. But for the most part, you shouldn't rely entirely on appreciation, because again, you have no control of what can happen with the market tomorrow. And even if you were to appreciate, let's say your rent, the most you're going to be able to appreciate is 3 to 5%. That's like $50 to $100 a month, depending on the area that you're investing. $50 to $100 a month is not going to do a lot for you. But if you can negotiate a really, really low price as soon as you go in, that will make a big difference in your mortgage payments. And that means you're going to be able to cash flow even more along the road. So take your time. Do not rush into decision just to say that, oh, I have a property under my arms, I'm a real estate investor. No, take your time, be patient. And I know it's difficult, because when you're caught up in the emotions and the excitement, it is very easy to give in and say, hey, I got my first property. But if you don't do it right from the beginning, you are going to regret that, because it's going to pile up, and you're going to feel the financial stress. So please be careful. And then it's Alabama, a tenant or landlord friendly state. I try to invest in a landlord friendly state. I actually never thought of it. I know for a fact that California is not a landlord-friendly state, but my property management agency made it so easy for me that I didn't even have to worry about that. And the way I started investing in Alabama was also by accident, and I didn't really have the experience at the time when I started investing in it, because all I did was just to go down there to help my sister find a rental, and it turns out that the rental she was looking at happens to be on sale, and I bought it. But that's actually a very good question. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure. Let's see, Abe, I concentrate in B and C class props. Great stuff. So just to give everyone a bit of an overview for those who are not familiar with the B and C type of properties. And it's funny enough, I took an entire day to record new YouTube videos for you guys. And the different type of property classes was actually one of the subjects that I cover. So there are four main type of property classes: class A, B, C, and D. So class A's are usually the new buildings, the ones that are recently built up. They're somewhere between 0 to 10 years old, and they are located in highly sought after areas, like areas that are considered hip, trendy, and stuff like that. B and C pertain mostly to working class, middle class neighborhoods, and also they range somewhere between 11 years to 20 years, so to speak. So that's not a bad thing for those who are actually wondering, because one of the questions I had in one of the episodes that I launched was that I prefer to invest in new properties because there's less maintenance. And just so you know, it all depends on your tenants. So for example, you can have the best building, the best house, brand new, very nice. But if you're not doing the proper due diligence to qualify your tenant and you place that tenant in that property, he or she or that family can completely trash your place. And believe me, it's going to be expensive for you to maintain, quote unquote, renovate, because you're going to have to deal with an eviction cost. You're going to have to deal with renovations. Meanwhile, if you invest in class B and C properties, then you're putting less money up front because they are usually less in cost compared to class A's. You are renting out to working class families, middle class families who are very nice to rent to. They want a home to live. And if you place that right tenant into the right property, then the combination of the two will save you money from having to maintain that property. Because if you have a family that it's careful, they are humble, and they're nice enough, and they care for the property and their family itself, you're not going to have to worry much about the upkeep of the property. The key is finding the right tenants. With the right tenants, there's not much to maintain. There's not much to, quote unquote, manage. So thanks for bringing it up. And I agree with you. B and C's are actually great properties to invest in. Abe is saying Ohio is a landlord-friendly state. Great stuff. With any property, getting the right insurance is imperative, and the cost related to it, of course, property taxes. I agree. So since you're talking about property taxes, Abe, something actually came up the other day. I think it was last month. I received the appraisal for all of my properties in Alabama. So just so you know, the appraisals can be subjective, just like it is with a not a property inspection, but what is it that the ones that they require at the closing? So it's not the inspection, but it's the other one that the bank usually orders when they want to check. They check the comparables of the properties in the area. I cannot believe I actually forgot that name. It's one of those many reports that they ask for at the closing, just to make sure that whatever property, an appraisal, I remember. Okay, so the tax appraisals and the property appraisals, they are sort of like evaluated the same way. It is based on an opinion of an individual, and is based on the comparables in the area. So it seems that for my 17 units, the state of Alabama actually sent out 2 or 3 different appraisals to evaluate my properties. So all 3 of them, or all 2 of them, actually had different opinions. So I got one property that was worth, $70,000, and all of a sudden I got the same slip with the appraisal for another property that was literally next door, and it was close to $200,000. So when the property is appraised at such a high value, it can only mean one thing. That means your taxes are going to go up. So what I did is that I actually contact the county of Alabama. I actually had to handwrite them a letter and explain, hey, why is it that my appraisers are so off? Because you have here, and I make them a copy, like I have this appraisal right here is saying that the property is worth $70,000. And all of a sudden I'm seeing this property right here and you're saying it's $200,000. But if you compare the specs, they're exactly the same. They have the same amount of bedrooms, the same amount of square footage. Please either send someone in or make the readjustments, because I don't think it is actually accurate to have these so off from one another. And what that's going to do is it's going to save some money off of taxes. And by that, I'm not saying let's evade taxes, but you also want to be fair. You're trying to be a fair investor. So it's just about fair that you ask for the same kind of fairness in return. So I'm still waiting for their answer to see what is it that they decide. But you have to stay on top of your properties. You have to stay on top of the taxes, because even the government makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So always stay on top of it. So that way you can actually just reach out and make sure that your cost is actually in check and that all of your expenses are in check. Because remember, it's not about how much money you can make. It's about how much money you can actually keep in house, and staying on top of those expenses like the property taxes is actually one way to control your expenses. Place on inspection report if needed. FYI, you can dispute property taxes. Yes, so that's what I did. So I see you kind of got ahead of me with the commentary. So thank you for sharing that. We are at minute 52. That means we have a little over 6 minutes for everyone to ask more questions. I wish I can stay more, but I have to get ready and jump on my next call at 1:30 with with my Spanish channel. So again, opening up the floor just to see if everyone else has more questions for me. And please do not be embarrassed. There's no such thing as a silly question or stupid questions. We're all here to learn. I'm one of those students who actually asked a lot of questions while I was in school or learning something new. In the meantime, I'm going to check my email just to see if someone sent a question privately that will want me to check out. But please feel free to drop a question here to see if there's anything else that you would like to ask. Let me see. I have one question here just to make sure it's coming in. And so someone actually asked, do I need to have my property completely paid off to apply for a HELOC? So the answer to that is no. You can have, let's say, for example, a mortgage for $200,000, and let's assume you paid off $100,000 off of that mortgage. And you can actually go to a bank, go to any lender and request to get a HELOC of that $100,000 in equity that you paid off. But it's not just off of that $100,000. It's also off of the appreciation. So let's say, for example, if your property at the time you bought it was $200,000, but then over the years it appreciated and it's now $250,000, and you pay down $100,000, then that means you have $150,000 to play with. You can go to a lender and say, hey, this is how much I have in equity. How much are you willing to lend me? So depending on the bank, they can give you a 75% a 75 LTV or an 80 LTV. So it all depends on the guidelines that each lender has. So again, I encourage you to shop around just to see what bank offers you the best deal. So I have another question here. Olayinka, is your email working? Because I emailed you last night, but you didn't get back to me. Olayinka, I did get your email, but I was in the middle of recording, and I know that you finish up with lesson 2. I will get back to you as soon as I am done with it, but it is working. It's just I finished recording really late last night, around 1 a.m.-ish. So apologize if I haven't gotten back to you, but I will. Just give me some time. I do try to respond to my emails within 24 hours. So I'll get back to you soon on that. And then Have you discussed cap rates before? No, I have not, because cap rates is usually used for commercial properties investment. I'm talking about buildings and stuff like that. And if your question has to do with my minimum in terms of commercial properties, my cap rate, my minimum is 10%. I do not go any lower than 10%. And yes, I know it's challenging to find something that's within that 10% range. And that's why I haven't moved on with anything that it's, of that caliber. Tita Ma, hi. Can I retain my HELOC on my first property once I move into a new property as my new primary residence? I think that will depend on the lender's guidelines. So that's something for you to discuss, but I don't see why it should be a problem, because once you get that HELOC, in essence, you can do whatever you want with it. So I'm not really sure if there's any limitations. I haven't applied for a HELOC because I actually don't own my primary residence. I rent in New York City because it's really expensive over here. So I'd rather use the money that I have to invest in another state where I can get the most out of my money. But I think you should be okay. It all depends on the guidelines that you get as soon as you work on the closing with your lenders, and just make sure you understand and read the mortgage paperwork with a specialist, in this case with your real estate attorney, just to make sure that all the clauses, all the rules are actually beneficial to you. So we have 3 minutes left and to this live session. I'm going to leave the chat open to see if anyone else has additional questions along the line. But I wanted to actually ask you guys, what days are working out better for you in terms of the live? Do you prefer Sunday or do you prefer Saturdays? It's more of a test for me because I'm trying to figure out what works out best for everybody. I'm going to shy away from now, for now, in the meantime, to do any live sessions during the week because everybody is working throughout the week. So I've been trying to accommodate everyone during the weekend, but it's been challenging for me to sort of like figure out if Saturday works best or Sundays works best for everybody. Either for Janice, Abe is asking, maybe discuss vacancy losses when calculating ROI next time. Yes, definitely. So in terms of vacancy rates, you'll have to factor in maybe a 5 to 10%, depending on the state. Usually in low income areas or in war zones, if you choose to invest in any war zones, you will have to factor in a much higher vacancy rate because the turnover is actually a lot faster and a lot higher than in other areas. But an average of 5% vacancy rate should be enough if you are investing in a middle income area or a working class area. So Saturday works out, Marilis works out either day. Samba 5 is correct. Sunday, hey Romeo. So A5 is correct. Yeah, 5% vacancy rate. Yes. So I am about a minute-ish away from ending the call today. Are there any other questions that you guys might want to ask me? So that way we can just answer it to the best of my abilities for everyone, and make sure everyone is happy and content with the content. So let's see, and just open up the floor. And if not, we're about to calling it an end. Feel free to submit your questions beforehand for the next live session. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this at the beginning of each month. So stay tuned for the emails letting you know. Happy investing to you too, Abe. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions on the floor before anybody else, before I let you go? All right, so it seems like we're approaching the end. Thank you, Marilis. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We have a couple of seconds before I call it for today. And what team is needed out for real estate investing? Okay, so just in a quick nutshell, you will need a real estate attorney. You will need a good realtor if you're trying to save time. If you don't want to leverage a realtor, just make sure you put a team in place. I think they're called bird dogs, that they can go around and find good investment properties for you, or you can work with a wholesaler that is going to help you find properties. You will definitely need a title agency or or an escrow agency that's going to help you with the closing. And I think I mentioned the property manager and a good contractor if in the event that you want to flip some property. So that's it. It's exactly 1 hour. I'm going to have to let you go. I would love to stay for a little bit more, but I have to jump on my next call. I actually have to get ready and go over the questions that were submitted in the other channel. And Olayinka, I haven't forgotten about you. Just give me until I am done with the live sessions and I should be able to get back to you in the email. Okay, so I'll talk to you all soon. I'll see you next month. And until then, take care. Stay tuned. I will post this live soon and you will have access to all the links that were actually discussed in today's live session. So until then, I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.